Welcome to Quest for the Best, the podcast where two Canadians and myself trek through the 100-year history of anime to discover the 100 best anime of all time, according to us.
I'm Tristan.
I'm Miles.
And I'm Geoff.
And this is our Quest for the Best. Let's do it. Let's talk about it.
Right.
Geoff, we have a question.
Yes, because now, before we can get to the actual quest, it's the part of the game where we break into your house and smash all your pots and get a question from you, the viewer. So the question of the week this week comes to us from, Miles, help me out here.
Carly from New Jersey?
Carly from New Jersey, that's right, who asks, what do you think of filler episodes in anime?
I guess that really depends on the show, really. Because, I mean, traditionally when people talk about filler, they're talking about filler in shonen, where it's like, hey, we either caught up to the manga or we don't want to catch up to the manga, so here's a couple of arcs of random stuff we came up with that we hope you're still cool with, while we let the manga cut not die.
So, Tristan, when you say that, your boomer is showing.
I know.
Now, filler means anything with any kind of downtime or character development or anything that's not a direct forwarding of the plot.
So all anime, all of it.
Yeah.
With the exception of like episodes 1 and episode 12/13.
Or even those episodes in all of your favorite anime, Tristan.
I know, because all my favorite anime are not overarching messes of stuff.
Literally the only anime in your top genre that would not be filler would be Yorimoi.
Yeah.
You could basically, you'd like, K-on's a filler anime.
Yeah.
Shirobako's a filler anime.
So there's this website called animefillerlist.com, right? And it gets about 3 million hits a month.
Oh, wow.
It is one of the biggest anime-related websites that is not a streaming service.
You know what? It should get 3 million hits a month to the face of the mother
Basement
person, the mother's basementer who made it.
Nice recovery.
I'm on a personal quest to swear less. It's not going well.
No, not at all.
I do like how there's a Cowboy Bebop page on that site. The funny thing is, every single title or every single episode is called Anime Canon. So listen, I think all of us are generally aligned on this. So if you have not figured it out by now, filler is a very silly concept. When I was a young teen watching Naruto in 3 parts on the Tube of Views in the first year of its existence, I guess you could say,
2005.
I was really enjoying watching Naruto, and then all of a sudden, I was not. And I couldn't figure out what the problem was, but I stopped watching it for many, many years. Eventually, it didn't take me that long, I learned that I basically was just in the filler hell at the end of the original Naruto, and Shippuden had not started yet. And so, I certainly got like filler pilled a little bit there when I was younger, and realized I don't really like content that is not anime original. And then I watched One Piece and my opinion changed back because I loved One Piece filler. Because One Piece filler arcs were great. In fact, I looked forward to the One Piece filler episodes more than the canon episodes because eventually I read the manga and then the filler was the new content. It was like a movie.
Yeah, that's the new fun stuff that gives you more adventures with the Straw Hats. And I mean, that's kind of something I think that makes One Piece a little bit unique among the big 3, even though the big 3 doesn't exist. But I mean, the big 3 era was really, I would say, peak anime filler in a lot of ways, right? Because like Dragon Ball had some filler, but it was paced out pretty well. And mostly they just drew the heck out of every episode that they could. And, every 10 seconds on Namek was its own episode. Right? Naruto and One Piece, and especially Bleach, are like
very well known for this.
Egregious filler slogs that I think the industry has ever seen. And it was like that moment in time where they were just trying to like pump out as much anime as possible to meet the Saturday morning cartoon demand that was like blossoming in the West, and also, the
The question that then I have is, like, we know the shonens because everybody talks about the shonens, but, like, technically, wouldn't shows like Detective Conan and Pokemon that have basically been running nonstop since the 90s with very little breaks, if any at all?
Well, so Pokemon doesn't have filler because there's no Pokemon manga to adapt. Like, you could consider...
there is one to adapt.
There is one.
Yeah, there's Pokemon Adventure, you're right, which is peak. But, you know, it has nothing to do with Satoshi or any of his misadventures. That's Ash Ketchum to you plebeians at home. Detective Conan's the one manga where I would consider most of the manga filler, and it's good filler, but, like, literally there are 12 plot episodes in the entirety of Detective Conan, and the rest of it is just going on a fun little adventure, meeting some characters we'll never see again, seeing half of them die, and figuring out how they died.
Is every episode of Columbo filler, where you don't talk about his wife, Janeway?
That is a very potent philosophical question.
So the difference between Detective Conan and Columbo is that Columbo's actually good, and Detective Conan would be a lot better if the vast majority of its mysteries weren't drawn out into multi-episodes for no apparent reason. Anytime I've tried to get into Conan, it's like, here's a mystery, and then it's like, I've sort of figured it out halfway through episode 1, but I need to now sit here for the rest of episode 1 and all of episode 2, and sometimes even episode 3, until the show figures it out, and then I question, why am I here?
So the reason that they're drawn out for that many episodes is because those are the non-filler episodes of Detective Conan. Because, you know, they gotta keep pace with a weekly manga that has a lot less pages. And
Columbo doesn't got that. Columbo's got a pilot directed by Steven Spielberg. It's fine.
You know, it's really interesting. Some of the best episodes of Detective Conan end up being the filler episodes just because, like, they're snappier. And, you know, it's a different writer doing the mystery and running with the characters, and, like,
it feels a little fresher.
No, it's a really interesting edge case now that you bring it up. But, like,
because that's what we do here. We bring up the wonderful questions of which is better, Columbo or Detective Conan.
So there's this trend right now where a lot of anime movies are becoming canon. So, like, the Haikyuu movie, the dumpster battle is canon. It was just the next part of the saga.
Has it not always been canon? Sorry to derail that for a second.
No, it was canon in the manga. It's so now I think what Miles is trying to say is that they are adapting canon parts of manga as standalone movies.
Okay. Is that what you're going for, Miles?
Yeah. Historically, though, like, the anime movies we would get, especially for, like, the Shonen Jump fare, would be quote-unquote filler. They'd be non-manga material. They'd be completely original, and they wouldn't have any relationship with the original author. One Piece kind of started changing that with, like, Strong World, Filmzy. When I was promoting One Piece Film Red in the UK, I had a much easier time convincing people to come out to cinema because it was considered canon, because Oda was not only helping with the writing of it, but, like, the characters were told to be relevant. And so there's obviously a bigger audience for things that are not recap arcs or quote-unquote filler. Like, the most recent My Hero Academia movie didn't do too well in the States, and I think a big part of that is people are like, well, I care about the real story, not this, like, side story that you have to squeeze in between 2 different episodes or a different arc. But the thing is, who doesn't love Lord Slug or any of the other 15 Dragon Ball movies, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, they're all pretty damn fun. And I mean, the thing about Dragon Ball, though, is it lends itself to just having little filler adventures happen around the big sagas, because there's a lot of downtime between sagas, and, like, the only saga gap where you can't really have any adventures is Frieza to Cell, right? Because Goku's in space. Or not Frieza to Cell, Frieza to the start of the Android saga. But, you know, Dragon Ball also is a really filler-friendly series because, like, Toriyama was making that shit up as he went along, right? He didn't have a grand overarching plot he wanted to tell. He was just doing what was fun. And
so Dragon Ball itself is just filler.
One could argue this, yes.
I mean, how many episodes do you need to watch Krillin boot up a Destructo disc before he launches it. That's like one of my earliest memories of that show is like 3 episodes of Krillin prepping a Destructo disc, and I'm like, you're gonna launch it, he's gonna do it, and you missed. you missed after 3 episodes.
But then like the episode of Dragon Ball Z that most people would think is filler if they haven't read the manga, the Goku and Piccolo go to driving school episode, is just one of the best chapters of the manga. You know, like Great Saiyaman in anything else would have been a filler arc, but that was like Toriyama messing around and having a good time.
And that's what he wanted Dragon Ball to be at that point, honestly.
Yeah, but like, yeah, with Naruto, and I mean, Naruto's also kind of a made up as it goes along story. Like Naruto had like a plot planned out to the Chunin, or to the Chunin exams, or Chunin exams. That's the first ones, right? And then like he was like, "Oh, I'm making so much money, I can't stop doing this. I got to figure out what." And like you feel that like filler gap between original Naruto and Shippuden, but like I don't know if you really feel that much of the filler in Shippuden, because like Shippuden is like not a very well-paced story.
I mean, but this gets to the larger point of I don't care if something is considered filler. I don't care if it's based on the source material. If I'm watching the anime, I'm wanting the anime experience, even if that does mean it takes a couple more chapters equivalent for Goku to power up his spirit bomb or whatever.
As long as it's entertaining, that's kind of my thing. Like, if it's just filler for the sake of filling the time slot, like an actual legitimate, we're just filling the time slot, that sucks. And that's not fun for anybody. Like the recap episodes, absolute mess. No, thank you.
No, actually, recap episodes it depends on how they're handled, but recap episodes can be peak.
I got a DVD set behind me for Wolf's Rain where you could skip an entire disc by accident and not notice because it's 4 episodes of recap, and it's like that's not needed. I mean,
Wolf's Rain's a different kind of filler where that was just the production like had a TV slot to fill and like ran out of time to make this insanely cool original anime that they just it was overscoped and over budget and a bunch of other stuff.
A lot of problems with Wolf's Rain. Glad that they still pulled it together in the end.
But filler is just not like a relevant thing anymore because we don't have those time slot considerations. We don't with, linear TV in the States, like American broadcast, doesn't do 24 episode seasons of very much unless you're a policeman or a fireman or one of the professions that my little boys would like to be one day. Like, you're not going to have 24 episodes a season. You're going to have 6 every 3 years. And anime in a similar boat where you don't get 24 episode seasons. You get at best split cores. Like Shangri-La Frontier is something of an anomaly because it's going to have almost 50 episodes within a year and a half, right?
Yeah.
Like that is just not how we watch anime anymore. And so...
And it's still behind the manga, so it's fine, right? Hiroaka was the big game changer for that, right? Where they just had the 24 episode seasons on a regular basis. I don't know if that was Bones understanding how streaming had changed the landscape.
Hiroaka was also weird because like wasn't Hiroaka the show that all of season 1 was animated and ready to go like a year before launch?
Yeah,
that was a really weird production story when I first heard it.
That's actually pretty standard for Bones. So they have like a couple production
They're
lines.
real pros.
They've learned since Wolf's Rain.
No kidding. So in the last like 10, 15 years, Bones has been pretty good about like, they're not going to have those complications. They're going to get everything done before episode 1, like a good percentage of the time, especially on their A and B lines. But this is, My Hero Academia fixed this situation. It was one of the anime of the 2010s. And then Demon Slayer kind of took it to the next level. And now we're not even able to watch it in TV form. We have to watch it in movie form because that is the most excitable and monetizable way to get people to actually watch the story.
For certain things, it really works. Like Jujutsu Kaisen, they have the Zero movie, and now they're making a movie out of the Hidden Inventory arc, which was, it's kind of like a reverse of what Demon Slayer did, where they had the Demon Training movie, and then they like stretched that out into 5 episodes of TV. They're taking 5 episodes of TV and condensing it into a movie.
I just end up hating it a lot because, like, once everything starts going to theatrical cinemas, there are only so many cinemas in and around me that actually take it. Occasionally, I have to go an hour to, like, I'm not going to dox myself. I have to go an hour one way sometimes, or I have to go an hour a different way for some other times. Occasionally, there is something that is at the local theater 20 minutes away, but that is so rare, and 9 times out of 10, it's for a movie I don't care about.
Yeah, that's.
I had to go an hour and a half away to watch A Silent Voice. I had to go 45 minutes away to watch Slam Dunk. I'm willing to do it sometimes, but sometimes, other times, it's like, why am I doing this? Why does this need to be the way that it has to happen?
This is what they call a skill issue, Tristan. You need to.
I just need to get good.
You need to get good. But yeah, I mean, yeah, the movie thing creates its own problem, but it can also be cool, right? Because, like, if you get that, like, extra budget oomph behind a like really important moment in the series, or I think in JJK's case with Hidden Inventory, they were planning to have the movie later, so they were able to put that extra oomph into the TV show when it came out, right? It can lead to, just a better version of the story than you'd get on even that Hiroaka model, which was a big step up, I think we can all agree, from the Naruto, One Piece, Bleach model of an episode every week that's like
ad nauseum, no matter what.
Like
one chapter to one episode.
Yeah, 10 minutes of content, 10 minutes of, like, flashbacks and
4-minute openings.
Yeah, 4-minute openings. I mean, I actually did recently sit down and watch with editor Trey, who works for my channel. We sat down and we watched the One Piece Gear 5 bits together, because that was, like, a really hype moment, right? And I enjoyed it. It was so cool, like, seeing how that was animated and like getting to hear all the actual Looney Tunes sound effects and stuff that they put in it. Like, that was so great. But I was just like, this could have been 10 minutes.
No. Okay, here's where we're going to hard disagree, dude. The Wano arc, I think, says, hey, filler, I've got your number. Because it mostly is 1-to-1, like one chapter to one episode, which is pretty challenging emotionally and sometimes patience-wise to have less than 1 page per minute. If you're reading, people read pages, like, in seconds, right? I know a lot of people read a chapter of manga, like a typical 20-page chapter of manga, in like 5 minutes. Now, with One Piece, I like to stretch it out. I like to get a nice tea or coffee or soda and take my time reading it, enjoy all the background details. And the anime for Wano...
Spend your time hunting for Panda Man.
Absolutely. And the anime for Wano feels like that kind of experience where it's like, we are going to luxuriate. We're not going to filler. We're going to luxuriate. We're going to make this feel cinematic every single episode. And I know that can be tiring in, like, a binge watch situation, but on a week-to-week situation, Wano is so eminently watchable and rewatchable to me, even though, yes, it is not the most efficient means of content tube into my mouth.
So no, I can see that, but when I'm talking about, like, the Gear 5 fight, right? Like, I'm talking about those series of episodes. There were, like, repeated animations. There were flashbacks inserted in that were, like, clearly just kind of, like, padding things out, right? There were a lot of things where I think they could have shaved 7 to 10 minutes off of each of those episodes and the fight would have felt better. Yeah, I don't know. I think, generally speaking, there is a place for those just endless anime productions. But, like, Black Clover was one of those, right? Black Clover didn't get a seasonal release. It was
like the last big one, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that was pretty detrimental to it.
How much did you watch of Black Clover? Because there were moments, sure, but, like, it felt like it was what My Hero Academia was doing, almost, just in longer form.
Black Clover was the one show that, like, I felt like I should have heard more people talking about, but never did. it had all the hallmarks of this is the show to watch this season, this is the show to watch this year, everybody should be watching it. Like, maybe this is to your point, Geoff, on how its release kind of hurt it a bit, but like I never got the feeling that it reached the levels that it should have. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I that's kind of where I'm at on it. Like, I regret the video that I put out crapping on the first few episodes of it. To this day, I think it's one of the worst videos I've put out. But I also I generally don't like watching it, and I much prefer the experience that I had when I eventually got around to reading the manga. And I think it would have been better if they had some time to just really, as you'd say, Miles, luxuriate, not necessarily in the pace of the story, but the art. Because Black Clover's greatest strength by far is Tabata's art. And
I think they get there. That's the thing. I think they do get there in the anime eventually.
But how long does it take?
I mean, filler goes part and parcel with like really, really cheap episodes that they have to, just like farm out as few frames as possible. And draw out the flashbacks and the like guys staring at each other and going, oh, and like the very low quality art and backgrounds and everything, so that they can buy time for the artists working on the important story beats to make those good, right?
But Geoff, my anime filler list, animefillerlist.com says that 4 episodes of Devilman Crybaby are filler.
And again, I think that the person who made that website deserves 3 million hits a month to their face and possibly balls. Yeah, like the idea that Devilman has filler or I mean, I've seen, Cowboy Bebop. Did we talk about this? Avatar, The Last Airbender is on the filler list. And they say Tales of Ba Sing Se is filler.
I mean, Geoff, there is no Tales of Ba Sing Se.
In Ba Sing Se?
There is no Tales of Ba Sing Se. But I mean, I almost call that would be personal preference, because like if you told me, hey, go rewatch Avatar The Last Airbender right now, I probably watch episode 1, and then I would more than likely skip the entire rest of book 1 and
You're making a huge mistake there. You are making a huge mistake because
I've seen it once.
No.
I've seen it once. It's still good.
It's peak the whole time. It is essential. It is essential to Aang's arc and the development and texture of the story that we spend some time doing cartoony nonsense. That we do that like episodic stuff that people feel like is filler. Where, they go and ride the Unagi.
It is essential to get 40 flashbacks in every episode of One Piece so we can understand exactly how Luffy is feeling in the moment, textually, symbolically, emotionally. Like, I mean, you're right, Geoff. It's not that different.
That's different, though, because that's not part of the plan.
So book 1 of Avatar was like the most watched thing on Netflix last year, right? Mm-hmm. So people obviously agree with you. I agree with Tristan because I understand the character progression, and I don't really enjoy Kid Aang as an adult. Didn't really enjoy him, Kid Aang. Like, I like it once we've gotten some character development, and I acknowledge, Geoff, that character development is very important emotionally to go through with Aang, however you want to pronounce it, Shamamoam. Like, it's important to get that character development. It's important to watch these characters interact, and that world building is really essential to understanding what the point of Avatar is and building color. But why would I want to rewatch something I've already seen about 40 times because my little brother would not ever turn off Avatar? Pretty tough.
Because Winter Solstice is like peak content.
I can only say that besides the intro, maybe the only other episode I would say to watch is the time that Sokka's girlfriend turned into the moon. Just so that you fully understand just how rough that is.
Buddy. But you, so you absolutely have to watch at least the finale of book one. But if you're going to watch the finale, then you should really watch Winter Solstice, because Winter Solstice is really good, and that, you know, you get that set up with Avatar Roku, and you know, that sort of development, which is really important. And if you're going to watch that, you should probably watch The Storm.
Okay, we get it. Just watch all of book one. We get it.
No, I'm not saying watch all of book one.
Except for the couple of episodes that you dedicate to be filler.
No, skip The Great Divide because it's terrible.
I mean, the fact that you even know all of these by episode names kind of blows my mind.
My philosophy actually is we watch The Great Divide as a reminder that no things in this universe are perfect, but you can skip The Great Divide. There is nothing of value, of character development, of world building, of plot progression in The Great Divide that you're not going to get from a different episode of Avatar.
Can I make a larger point about filler right now? We're no longer in the era of filler. It doesn't matter anymore. Your time is not more important than the time it took to make the show. If these artists can take the time to put something together, a product though it may be, give it a try. Like, if you are extremely limited in the amount of entertainment time you have in your life, I understand wanting to watch Skip Guide. I understand wanting to skip filler. But most of the filler conversation is not the conversation we've been having here. Most of the conversation filler is you should exclude this art from your entertainment. You should excise this thing that people put work into because it doesn't contribute to some larger goal. And I think that mentality is the problem, not necessarily skipping filler itself. Skipping filler is theoretically fine, but like,
I mean, if you've seen the show already, you know,
and
like
if you've seen the show already,
I say don't skip the first book of Avatar, because like,
I'm not saying to do it the first time through. If you've never watched Avatar, by all means, watch all of book one. I'm just saying you will not see me rewatch the vast majority of book one ever again.
I mean, you should rewatch it on occasion. You know, not every time that
Never
you watch
again.
it.
I mean, on occasion is how often I'm going to be
so
watching
good.
Avatar to begin with.
Yeah, so you should watch it every time. But what I'm kind of saying, right, is like there's this attitude that like people, a lot of people seem to look at like movies and TV shows as just a way to find out stuff that happens, and anything that's not about the stuff that happens, or any stuff that happens that does not contribute to the next thing happening, doesn't matter, right? You know, and at that point, just go on Wikipedia. Just read the wiki summary of the episodes if you're so concerned about.
Watch the reactive YouTubers who upload their episode within like 30 minutes of the new episode going up and spoiling you with a thumbnail.
Yeah. Just go to certain anime YouTubers and look at their thumbnails, and you'll find out the finale of every episode.
You'll do it. You'll see it.
But
it'll be there.
But you know, like if you want to experience the story, then experience the story, experience the whole thing, the ups and downs, the slow moments and the fast-paced, like intense stuff, because it all contributes to the overall picture. And like, if you watch Avatar and you skip book one, or you skip Tales of Ba Sing Se, you have not watched Avatar: The Last Airbender. You've watched a TikTok clip compilation, maybe a longer one than you'd watch on TikTok, but you've watched an edit that someone who frankly doesn't know half as much about storytelling as the people who made it put together for you. If you skip,
or you've watched live action.
Yeah. You've watched live action Avatar. Zing. Your time is your time, right? You know, you can do with it whatever you want, right? But like, I think there is value in the parts of art that don't give you the biggest dopamine hit, and learning to appreciate those will help you appreciate your time better. That's my thought.
And never skip the opening. All right.
Never skip the opening.
Now, we can transition this actually, because like a big chunk of this, and to Geoff's like final point here, is when it comes to time, time is something that like some of us have very little of, like free time to do whatever. But occasionally when we do, we like to do other things. And for today, that is our side quest. Now, last week, or last episode is probably safer to say. Last episode, our side quest was a kill quest, where we talked about solo leveling, and we gave a brief description on why it was not making our list. This week, we're not doing another kill quest. We're going to try and keep the variety up a little bit. And instead, we are doing a fetch quest. And essentially what a fetch quest is one of us has kind of told the other two, hey, go experience this thing. Go out into the world. Experience whatever this is. Does not necessarily have to be anime, but probably will largely be over the course of the podcast. And then come back and we can discuss. Because sometimes the best way to talk about anime from a larger, like, kind of media perspective is to be able to compare it to other medias and how they're doing it. So this week, it was my turn to pick the side quest, and I gave the fetch quest to Miles and Geoff to go and play a video game. And this video game is called Avowed. Because in Futureland, when this episode comes out, it will have been out for a while. But as we are here, it is more recently come out, and it's really good. And I wanted to talk about it. Despite the fact that I already know that Geoff has played far more hours than both I have and probably ever will. Because as I mentioned, I have very limited time. And we're going to get to that.
I mean, I sunk all of my free time that I could into it over since it's come out. Yeah. I'm like 50 hours deep.
Oh, God, I'm not. I think I'm close to only 10 at this point, which... for a game of this size, I'm sure somebody will tell me that's nothing. I've barely played it, and I agree. Also because, like, when I was experiencing other people play this game, I noticed just how sandboxy it really is compared to what I was expecting from an Obsidian game. Because, not to spoil anything for anybody that has played it, but there is a point in Avowed that can be reasonably early on, and this is my point, where you walk into a particular area and a cutscene happens and a thing occurs. And for me, this occurred like 3 or 4 hours into the game. And I watched somebody else on YouTube, maybe it was Many a True Nerd, not entirely sure, I'm probably wrong. I watched somebody go through like 8 or 9 hours playing this game, and they never walked into the city to activate that same cutscene in their, like, almost double amount of time of playing the game because of how open and sandboxy it is. Which, I love Obsidian. I really do. And there's a lot of things about this game that I enjoy playing and enjoy experiencing. But there is a level of sandboxiness that I am just not the best with because I have limited amounts of time. I get my gameplay time for like 2 or 3 hours in the evening, and I would like to feel within those 2 or 3 hours that I have meaningfully progressed in some fashion with whatever I am experiencing.
My kind of counterpoint to that, because I've been really enjoying Avowed.
Yeah.
And I think that the way that the sandbox is set up in Avowed is a perfect example of how to give you a like meaningful sense of progression, no matter how much time you have to play the game.
So is your argument then that like doing anything is in that case progression, and as long as you do something over the course of however long your play session is, that is still progressing because of how the content has been formatted? Or
no, because like Avowed is very well designed as sandbox games go, and I've got this.
I will give it that as much as like there's a level of sandboxiness that I don't like, which is why I like fell off entire franchises that are revolving around that. I used to play Assassin's Creed way back in the day. Haven't touched it.
I mean,
I've been tempted a couple of times, but
I'll probably get back into Shadows. But the only Assassin's Creed that I've really ever super fallen in love with is 2, and that one is the perfect example of how to pace a sandbox game. And
it is the best sandbox game probably that I have ever played, and may ever will play. I hope to play a better one eventually. I'm not ruling that out, but considering how many there have been, like I've tried to go back to Creed before. I tried going into Black Flag because I love me some sea shanties. I tried to get into Valhalla because, again, the music in Valhalla is absolute peak.
I mean, is it peak, or has
it is
Assassin's Creed had peak music since Jesper Kid stopped doing the soundtracks?
So I've put like 200 hours.
Don't do that to me. I was about to say, sorry, Miles. We'll get back to the amount of times you put into it. I'm sorry. I just have to make this point. I was about to argue, Geoff, that, well, actually, no, Black Flag and Valhalla have better soundtracks because I listen to them constantly. And then I remember on one of all of my playlists of music that I listen to, they're all like variety stuff. None of it makes any sense to anyone but me. But one of my most replayed playlists that I have had for almost a decade now has Ezio's Family from Creed 2 on it. So I can't even say that.
Which is one of the greatest songs ever.
It's one of the best songs. So
man, when that kicked in the shamisen version of that kicked in the Shadows trailer, I was like, oh, I was on board. Miles,
Miles,
right?
what was we cut you off? Go ahead.
So I've put like 200 hours into the new Assassin's Creed games, like the post-Odyssey ones.
Yeah.
And they are not good. I want to just be very clear. I feel like I wasted most of that time, and yet I keep going back because I do like open world games fundamentally. Like that hits a certain like switch in my brain, and it cannot stop myself from just playing, exploring, going through the map. The gameplay loop is not very good compared to Avowed or compared to a lot of other games. But I don't think 2 is like 2 is my favorite game of the series, but it's not a very good open world game. It's a very good linear game that lets you pretend it's open world at times or lets you do minor changes. But I mean, I feel like when you call 2 an open world game, that's like calling Ocarina of Time an open world game because you can do the Spirit Temple third.
I get that. No, that makes sense. Because I would probably say that 2 is as much of an open world game as like Witcher 3.
But I mean, that's
because it's not like when people think open world, and especially when you're talking about like an Ubisoft game, there's like a level of Ubisoft open world that is just like permeated the rest of the genre. So
actually, we're getting into kind of a very hair-splitty distinction. So, sandbox. They are sandbox games. They're not open world games. So open world is exclusively Cyberpunk 2077, Tears of the Kingdom, a game where there is a single contiguous play space where all of the gameplay action happens, or almost all of it, aside from a few instances. Like, GTA 5 is an open world sandbox game, but it has like a few instances where you go to different parts of the country for story missions.
What by your definition is the difference between open world and sandbox, if they can also be both at the same time?
So an open world is an open world. It is you can go anywhere and at any point with, there could be some restrictions based on how far you've progressed the story, but like once you unlock an area, you can go there, go back.
You can go north out of Good Springs and Fallout New Vegas. Don't recommend it though.
I mean, there's pretty easy ways to.
Yeah, you can cheese it. Yes, I'm aware.
But like Avowed and Brotherhood fall into the camp of sandboxes, which is open spaces where you are free to explore and play as you see fit, but they are segmented into zones, and you access the zones linearly. So they're still sandbox games. And I honestly think that is a better way to pace a sandbox game in most cases. Because like in Brotherhood, in AC2. Yeah, because Brotherhood is an open world. And Brotherhood destroys the pacing of AC2.
This is why I never played it.
Yeah.
My memory of AC2 is perfect. It has not been blemished by either Brotherhood or, what was the third one, Revelations?
Revelations, yeah. So like in Brotherhood, I like got into the game. I played like a couple hours. I saw the map just covered in shit, and I was like, I'm never playing this. And I stopped. Yeah. 2 is you get to each zone, and there's like a set number, a finite doable number of collectibles. There is a finite doable number of quests and side quests and like mini objectives. And however much time you have to play Assassin's Creed 2, you can make progress on one of the side quest tracks or get some collectibles or like do some fun parkour and find something neat. And Avowed is exactly the same thing. If you have 20 minutes to play, you can look at a cool landmark, go there, climb up it, find some good crafting loot, or maybe
see that mountain, you can climb it.
Well, no, see that lighthouse, you can climb it, and not see that mountain, you can climb it. You don't go. You can't climb a lot of the mountains unless you see like a very clearly defined parkour path up the mountain, and I really appreciate that. I like being able to.
I remember there was a spot in Avowed that I got stuck. I was following a quest marker, and it wanted me to go and jump off this thing, and then it informed me that I needed an item in order to make the jump. Because I needed an item to freeze the water so that I could jump onto the frozen water and then jump up. And it took me like 5 minutes to realize. It took me like a minute or two to realize that the item was actually there, and
that
I was
like,
literally
tutorializing you, and you were just
I was just so used to. I was so used to like hard barriers in games, and I was just like, oh, this is just one of those things that you're gonna make me come back for, isn't it? And then I found the item, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm dumb.
And the cool thing is, if you have any ice spell, you don't have to worry about that. You can just, fire your ice bolts at it. Or if you've got an ice weapon, you can stab the water as you jump on top of it.
Except Geoff, the thing is that I am a simple man. You give me an Obsidian game that is first person, I'm going to build a stealth archer. And that is exactly what I did.
So, I mean,
I built a stealth archer. I don't have ice spells.
But you could also respec your character for a very minimal amount of gold at any time and have more fun.
I do appreciate that. Like, I love games that let me do that. The fact that when I've been replaying Cyberpunk, that I needed to mod the crap out of the game to allow it to just let me respec my character. The fact that that's built in is just so nice. Please let me just respec whenever. Like, if you want to put it in being like, oh, hey, it's going to cost some in-game gold or something that gets exponentially higher the more you do it. Sure, fine. Do that, but give me the option. And especially do not do the Cyberpunk thing where it's like, oh yeah, because of 2.0, we'll let you respec once. And I'm like, no, you built the system. You built the system. It's available now, and you're just blocking me out.
That was what got me back into Cyberpunk, literally, was I like started up my file again, and I was like, oh, I can respec. And I was like, I'm not really having fun with this hacker thing. I'm just gonna turn into a street samurai. And I turned into a street samurai, and I deflected bullets back in guys' faces and sliced their heads off for 70, 80 hours of really good. Actually, no, I think I'm over 100 hours in that game now.
Oh, jeez.
Cyberpunk is peak. Cyberpunk is the best open world sandbox I think maybe I've ever played.
Well, let me put it this way.
Breath of the Wild is the only other option.
Let me put it this way, Geoff.
Defend that over Tears of the Kingdom.
After my 10 some odd hours of Avowed, I have since been playing Cyberpunk instead of playing more Avowed.
Even you gave us the fetch quest.
I know I did. This is because I gave you the fetch quest while I was in the middle of playing Avowed. And then I keep having conversations with people, yourself included, I might add, to be like, hey, you really should play Phantom Liberty, which I have yet to do.
Yeah.
I'm in the process of doing it. Let me get there.
And you still got to get through another 30 hours of, or several hours.
Yeah.
Probably 20 hours of Cyberpunk to get to Phantom Liberty.
And I'm taking my time. I have to go and save Pan Am out in the middle of nowhere before I go and deal with Voodoo Boys. I'm totally fine with that. But
this is the problem with Avowed for me, too, which is I am also playing a better open world game at the same time.
Which is called
Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 came out
of course you are.
Around the same time.
Because of course you are.
Sequel to like my favorite game, one of my favorite games of all time. And it does not respect my time.
As someone who's never played Kingdom Come Miles, please sell me on it.
It's very easy. So, do you like all the fantasy, woo-ah, wizards, cool magic spells, cool races in video games and anime?
Yes.
So, when you're saying fantasy, are you talking about like Tolkien fantasy? Are you talking about like Lodos fantasy? Are you talking about King Arthur fantasy?
All of it.
All of it. Okay, then yes.
What if you could just escape that for once?
Yeah, no, I we should do a separate fetch quest on Deliverance 1, maybe, or Deliverance 2 if you feel like we could jump right into it, because I really want to play it.
Yeah, you can.
But
we will back burner that.
I really want to play Deliverance, but I have really been enjoying Avowed, and I want to take a sec to evangelize about it, because I've been playing the game on hard, which is very rewarding. It's a very rewarding and fun combat system. And if you're playing a stealth archer, you get a little bit of that because the archery feels pretty good.
It's actually pretty good, yeah. The only problem I have with stealth archery in most games, and sometimes this has been a problem with Avowed, is like, hey, I'm being stealth archery, but this game has a party system, and sometimes they are not stealthy, and that's a problem.
Well, I mean, the AI can't detect them unless it detects you. It's one of those games where your dudes can just run in front of them and you won't.
Yes, but it's more of a, sometimes if I get detected, I don't necessarily have the best ways of getting out of it, because as soon as the detection starts, it's like Metal Gear Solid. What was that? And then suddenly it's just full on combat.
Just keep leveling up until you get the ability to turn invisible.
Okay.
Because you can proc that in the middle of combat. Yeah. So they have built it so that you can play a stealth archer and like get more and more fun abilities to keep making your stealth archer cool. But the thing that I love about Avowed is that the build possibilities are endless. And I'm going to tell you something right now that's going to make you regret playing a stealth archer, because what I am playing right now, I have built my character to have high perception, high dexterity, and high intellect. Those are my focus stats.
I was with you until the intellect part.
Well, no, because here's the thing: I have built a battle wizard, with a gun.
Oh, right, I forgot that guns are in this game.
So this is exactly why I'm not playing Avowed. Everything you're saying to me sounds great. I will play it eventually, all the way through, more than just like 2 hours, and I will have fun with it. But when I played this for the fetch quest, I was like, wow, the writing is good, but it's not great. Oh, the gameplay is fun, but it feels like a power fantasy in the way that like video games should be. Like, it feels arcadey as a video game a little, in a way that I like Metal Gear Solid style arcadey, right? Like, where it's like just really satisfying to play. But I'd rather be slogging through carrying bodies slowly on my shoulder and then having to dig the grave for them because I need to not like cause problems for the church in the year 1400 in Bohemia. Like, that's what I'm looking for in my video games, is like this overly authentic, in, as much as it can be, like slog of a game that makes me feel like I'm actually role-playing. When people say role-playing games, they usually mean like power fantasy, not like I don't feel immersed in the way that in playing Avowed, or I love the Outer Worlds, but like I don't feel immersed. I feel like I'm playing an arcadey game, and I have a great time.
To do a callback, I want to call back to last episode, because last episode we had a point when we were talking about solo leveling where we compared it to watching someone be really, really good at playing Elden Ring. And I feel like
I said it's more like Skyrim. Because
yes, I know. There was a whole part of the discussion. Go watch episode 1. But the thing that I find difficult with most open world and sandbox games, and this applies to the ones that I love as well, is that when I'm trying to build something, I get it in my head that my build is never good enough, and I never know when to stop, because it's like I want to do certain things, but I am not always the best at build crafting myself. And then when I rely on other people to do the build crafting for me, it always feels like it's not quite where I want it to be. But like I've had it in Cyberpunk as well, where I keep trying to bounce between, hey, do I want to be a netrunner? Do I want to go be like a proper solo Morgan Blackhand? Like, I can never really truly figure it out. And I never, even after hours and hours, I never find that I get the groove that I really want to be in.
I mean, Cyberpunk's an interesting one, because with the way that the system is designed, you kind of have to plan out your build, and you have to like fit into a few different pre-planned paths, right?
Well, Cyberpunk's other problem is that, like, sometimes your build is just absolutely amazing until it's not. So, like, I have a build, the build that I'm running right now, I'm worried about it. Because right now, I can walk up to, like, any NCPD sighting or what have you, where it's like, hey, bunch of guys, and I can just be like, okay, you're dead, because I just double quick hack all of them, and then I just pull out my smart sniper, and then just headshot the last 3, and I'm like, I'm done. But then, I know that the main story has bosses that my build is just gonna crumple under.
That's not necessarily true. You just need
not necessarily true, but it's like
I mean, if you're net running, like what I'm trying to get across in Cyberpunk is it wants you to focus on doing one thing particularly well. And the amazing thing about Avowed is you
can do a lot of
free
things
respecking
very, very well.
With its free respecking, it's designed to allow you to like hybridize the main play styles of sword and board, parry, tank, stealth archer, mage, gunner. You can mix and match the bits that you like, and like it gives you a very limited pool of points to do it, right? You have 30 skill points throughout the entire game to sink into the skills that you want to be good at. But because it's only like a pretty manageable amount of money at any stage in the game to just completely rewrite how your character works, you're able to experiment if you're like, oh, okay, well, you know, I like this mage build that I'm doing, but this spell that I thought would be super awesome is kind of redundant with my knives. So I like take that, you know, I spend 2,500 gold, I take that out and I rebuild it. And it kind of feels like dialing in your deck in a trading card game, right? Where you're like, you're play testing, you're taking a few things out and you're moving some stuff around. You go into your companions and you tweak their build to best complement what you're doing. And there's a limited enough number of options, and you have that you can kind of theory craft on the fly. Whereas in Cyberpunk, you have to start a new character if you want to go from being a street samurai like I'm doing now to a net runner or a not a heavy. What's it? Morgan Blackhand.
Solo?
The solo, yeah. I forgot the Cyberpunk lingo.
The in-game term for it.
Yeah. To be a...
And yes, you need to do that unless you mod the heck out of the game, which, you know, I do.
Which is, you know, valid. But like Avowed, I mean, like the thing is, I think that Cyberpunk is the most fun if you commit to that build and you have that long-term plan of like, this is the loot that I'm going to try to get this playthrough, and these are the choices I'm going to try to make to get my guy to the level of unbeatability I want to be at. Whereas in Avowed, it's like, oh, I picked up this cool piece of gear, and you know, it's designed very smartly.
Let's respec my entire life around this new piece of gear.
But also, can't you just beat the game in like 20 hours? So wouldn't it make more sense
you're
for
on
like
easy.
Avowed?
If you're on easy.
But like for Avowed, there's more value in committing.
No, I would say no, because like it depends on, like, I'm 50 hours into one playthrough because I'm playing on hard. And hard, like if you play on easy, you're just going through for the story and you're just going through for the open world, and that's fine. It's you know, it's a well-designed open world that like you want to poke around every nook and cranny and find all the cool shit, and it rewards you for doing that with both good loot and like little story things. And, you know, the story, like you were saying, it's not that well written. That is kind of true.
It's not. It's good. It's just, I've been playing Kingdom Come, which is some of the best video game writing I've ever seen. So it's just, you know, not a good time for me to be playing it.
And here's the thing for me, Geoff, when it comes to the writing, is that in previous conversations that we've had, sorry to the listeners of the podcast, you know, some of my favorite video games of all time. Mm-hmm. I find it very, very difficult to listen to this story and hear the voice of Garrus Vakarian telling me things in a story that I don't think I like as much as Mass Effect.
I mean, you gotta...
I find it very hard not to constantly make that comparison in my brain.
So here's the thing, like I think I like the story more than you guys do, but like it does get a lot more interesting. It starts, once that thing happens that you were talking about for 4 hours in, it starts to get a little more interesting. But once it really starts touching on like the issues of colonialism and empire on a broader scale, and you get into the deeper zones, there is some really interesting story content there. And more to the point, once you get into the side of the story where you're exploring your godlike's destiny, I don't want to spoil stuff, but like when you really start interacting with the supernatural religious side of the lore, there's some really good stuff in there, which is, I think, one of the things that Obsidian has always been really good at is getting to the thorny philosophical stuff.
Well, I mean, Pillars of Eternity was just absolutely filled with that. So yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're a Pillars of Eternity fan, then I mean, yeah, you will want to get a little deeper, I think. And there is some really good stuff in there. I also Garrus Vakarian is really good in this.
I'm not saying he isn't. I appreciate the voice actor. I appreciate the man. I love the character. But it's just the comparison that I was having the issue with.
This is a really important thing, though. You can have, or you can start a gay relationship with Garrus Vakarian if you want to, in Avowed.
You can do that in Mass Effect, too, if you mod the game.
No, you can't. You have to mod it.
You can do that in Kingdom Come, but with a different voice actor.
It's not Garrus Vakarian. And, like that's the thing. Like, you had to be FemShep, which I guess everybody played FemShep anyway, so everybody romanced
Actually,
Garrus
no.
anyway.
Statistically, the vast majority of players played male Shep, but they obviously weren't playing the game correctly.
Yeah, I mean, I played male Shep, and, then
you didn't play the game correctly.
The funny thing is, I'm pretty sure that the gay romance with Garrus Vakarian is the only romantic path you can take with a companion in Avowed. It's not a game where you can romance your companions. The companions are not player sexual characters. They're like independent with their own goals and motivations, and like they're actually like really well done characters. I like the fact that your party is 4 people, like a good old fashioned, and you can only take 2 of them with you at any good time, like a good old fashioned JRPG, right? Like it's just 4 really good, really interesting characters who all have like a distinctive role in gameplay and a distinctive role in the story. And there's very little overlap. And it kind of gets rid of a lot of the problems I had with the Outer Worlds, where some of the characters just felt kind of ancillary and a lot of their stories. Yeah, I mean, I love the Outer Worlds.
It's a good game.
But we don't have time to get into that.
Yeah, like a lot of people came in and they were like, it's not New Vegas, and they were disappointed, and I understand that perspective. But to me, I came in and I was like, okay, this is Mass Effect, but with actually good shooting and
Geoff.
Flash Gordon aesthetics.
Geoff, we don't have time to get into Outer Worlds.
Sorry. I have to make my case on that. But Avowed,
I know this is the side quest.
Avowed it's a really, really good game. And I don't, it's not the best story that Obsidian's ever made, but the characters are solid. There are few enough of them that they get a chance to have emotional depth, and the ones that you bring to you or that you bring with you into each cutscene actually like make a noticeable difference in how the dialogue flows and everything. You can get certain outcomes if you bring certain characters with you that you can't get otherwise. It's very smartly designed in that way.
And I'm very excited to play it eventually, because
or more
it
than
seems
you
like
have.
a very fun game, but you know what? There's just a moment in my life where instead of being a team of superpowered wizards and whatever, I want to be a slightly buffered dude in Bohemia. Yeah. Just like slightly stronger and slightly more clever than everyone around me. Like I've read like 3 books instead of 1.
I mean,
that's kind of nice.
That's why I recommended A-Train to you, Miles, because I know that you're the kind of guy who really likes those crunchy simulations where like you got to struggle for it.
Do you know what would be even better though? Is if instead of being some buffed up guy in Bohemia, you were a skinny Japanese woman in a mech.
That's not
patrolling.
a good segue into the movie
It's
we're
not.
talking about because she's
I know,
not the main character.
but we need some freaking segue.
If you were a 40-year-old cop whose ex-husband came back into town and it was really awkward.
I mean, I was more so like talking about Patlabor in general, not specifically our topic today, but sure. Okay, cool.
Today's main topic is Patlabor 2 by Mamoru Oshii, 1993-ish.
Was it 93? I just know that Ghost in the Shell was 95. Like, that's just stuck in my brain. And it actually, for it to come out in 93, Patlabor 2, it kind of blows my mind that it's like within 2 years, he then goes on to do Ghost in the Shell.
It doesn't blow my mind because there's so much continuity in terms of like the concepts developed in Patlabor 2 and expanded on in Ghost in the Shell. Like, they feel very much like companion pieces to me in my mind.
But Miles, Patlabor 2, you have chosen Patlabor 2 this week. Why?
So for my first episode where I'm picking the anime, I decided to pick my favorite anime to start. My favorite anime changes all the time. I'm not like Tristan who just moves up the ladder of new favorite animes. Mine is a like group of like 4 or 5 things that I choose between. The thing that they almost all have in common is being directed by Mamoru Oshii. And so Patlabor 2 is one of the ones that I give most often when people ask me my favorite anime. It is a little annoying to recommend a sequel to watch because it is something that theoretically does require some homework.
Theoretically.
So to watch Patlabor 2, to get the most out of it, you have to watch a 6-episode OVA series. The episodes are only like 20-something minutes. It's not too long.
Yeah.
And then you really should watch Patlabor 1, which follows then Patlabor 2. Now, Patlabor 1 is extremely good.
I mean, you also need to watch all of Patlabor TV, all 50 some odd episodes.
No, you
of Patlabor
don't.
TV.
It's a different canon.
I know.
Don't mess with
I'm
people,
a big fan of Patlabor TV. I love Patlabor TV a lot, but I know I can never recommend that to anybody.
You can recommend it. It's good. It's just not.
It's not
as good as the OVAs.
Okay. Here's the thing. It's good if you only compare it to the other anime of the time. If you compare it to every other Patlabor out there, if you're going to recommend somebody to watch Patlabor, are you seriously going to say that in any situation recommending Patlabor TV is better than recommending the OVA? No. It's just not.
Patlabor TV is basically like the Ghostbusters television show compared to the original Ghostbusters movie, where a lot of why you like it is because it reminds you of the original or the mainline thing.
I mean, I that's kind of a bad comparison because Patlabor 2 is very good and Ghostbusters 2 is one of the worst things ever.
There's only one real Ghostbusters movie.
Yeah.
So
also, I don't know if we'll get into it now, but we'll get into it probably at some point in time. I feel like I have an argument to make that Patlabor 2 is Patlabor in name only.
Sure. So Patlabor as a franchise is really this series that's not all that serious. Like the TV show that they were just talking about and a lot of the manga that it's based on is very straightforward, like workplace comedy. And it's,
the original OVAs kind of are too.
They are interspersed with like really good action or even kind of horror. And it feels like a good balance of...
The OVA is such a mixed bag. It's like... It's like a charcuterie board of different things. It goes all over the place. Sometimes it's like, hey, police procedural. Other times, here's Godzilla.
If you were to compare like Patlabor TV to The Simpsons, then Patlabor OVA would be like Simpsons Treehouse of Horror a little bit, but with continuity. And maybe that's a bad comparison on all levels, but like...
Quite possibly, yes.
I kind of like it.
I mean, it sounds cool.
And like Patlabor 1 is like kind of like watching the cast of The Simpsons do like a really cool action movie, like a John McClane Die Hard. And then Patlabor 2 would be like watching Principal Skinner go off to do Apocalypse Now, like an entirely serious take on Apocalypse Now.
So in the same way that Urusei 2 Beautiful Dreamer is just using the characters from Urusei as like puppets in a completely different production, Patlabor 2 is kind of that same thing. Oshii is once again saying, hey, we've got this rich world where Patlabor stands for patrol labor. It's for these, we're following a bunch of cops who are part of the like mecha unit in Tokyo. And Tokyo, it's just an alternative history where they're building up more in the bay. There's a bunch of big projects that are being built up. There's all this refilled land. There's all these mechas running around, and the police, the cops, need military weapons, as we know in our current society. They just need them. They really, really need them. They need to be able to kill a lot of people very quickly and efficiently. But no, I mean, in the TV show, a lot of times it's a farm equipment mech going rogue, and they have to use their patrol laborers, their pat laborers, to stop the rogue mech.
If we can take just a step back for the people at home who don't know pat labor at all, right?
Okay.
So the concept of pat labor is, what if cars were giant robots, essentially?
What if cars? I mean, I heard you say that, and then I'm like, what, you mean like Pixar cars? Or
No. What if, like, you know, heavy machinery, but also cars were giant robots? What if a cop car was a giant robot? What if a bulldozer at a construction site was a giant robot? What if all of the things that we use vehicles for, we also had giant robots that could do those things? Or actually not giant robots, mid-sized robots. And these are called labors. And the patrol labors are a division that are of the police that has been created to deal with labor-related crimes. Because if you give people giant robots, sometimes they're going to use a giant robot to punch a hole in a bank.
Have robot do crime.
Okay, Miles, you can continue from there. I just wanted to...
That's really good. So, and that's the thing. There's a lot of world building that goes into this, and that's why it's a little frustrating that this is one of my favorite movies of all time, favorite anime of all time, favorite everything of all time, because it is something that does require some homework and some context, but I don't think it's all that much, and also, it is worth it, which was super excited to finally show this to you, Geoff, because Tristan and I have been talking about how great this movie is for years and years and years and years around you, and now we finally got to show it to you, and it's my favorite, or one of my favorites, because it is the most thoughtful, evocative story that is more timely than anything made post 9/11 about like the 9/11 era surveillance state that came about. And yet it predates that situation by 8 years. It comes from a lot of insecurities about post-war Japan and brings in the new insecurities that came about because of the financial crisis, which Japan is, still going through to this day.
Yeah.
It is all these anxieties put into one movie in a way that is very evocative and thoughtful. And tells a great story in the meantime.
And like with Geoff's whole explanation on what a labor is, it is very sad that labors are barely used in this film.
That is kind of, I think, one of the thematic anchors that makes it so interesting, is that it's like, it's kind of a proto Ghost in the Shell. It's kind of like working through the political drama that makes, all of Oshi's Ghost in the Shell work so good. But it's also, in the sense that you're talking about, Miles, that it's kind of like a rumination on both the collapse of the Japanese economic bubble and the lost decade and the anxiety brought about by that. And because Oshi is a smart guy, it connects those anxieties to the inevitable self-induced collapse of the neoliberal world order.
And if it sounds like Geoff is pulling this out of his nether regions, he's actually not in this particular situation.
There's
like textually what this movie is about.
There's an entire like very, very lengthy rant from a very smart guy who feels, I think, the most like a Ghost in the Shell character of anyone. Oshi likes weird guys with deformities who are super smart.
He does.
But he really like gets into a Metal Gear Solid monologue about how
war has changed.
Not how the peace that we experience in advanced first world societies is bought with blood in the third world. And there is no way to prevent that from coming home to roost forever. And there is violence underpinning everything that we perceive as peace. and that violence is always trying to bubble through to the surface, and all it takes is a disruption of the status quo, a sufficient disruption of the status quo and communication and the trust between the agents that uphold that order to cause the violence to burst forth. And like, I mean, this whole movie is about watching violence bubble under the surface of seemingly peaceful imagery, which is why the labors don't come into it until that glorious last 30 minutes where, everything comes to a head. But for the most part, it's just absolutely chilling imagery of military escalation with no actual action. And just, people trying their best to keep this house of cards from collapsing in on itself using investigative techniques and negotiations and intel gathering and all of these different elements. And it's such a brilliant cyberpunk thriller. And
to your point about all the military weaponry, it's so funny because this is a very Mamoru Oshii film in every way, like it always is. Like, his directorial stamp is everywhere to be found. All of his memes are quite present. But the point you made about all these representations of military force being very present and visible, but not firing, it exposes the fun, I think, contradiction in Oshii that he loves to explore himself, of his obsession and kind of like geekiness towards military hardware, but his inherent, intense, like fiery pacifism. Those things are both present by just having tanks sitting with like kids playing around them. He gets to have his cake and eat it too in every way. He gets to draw the tanks. He gets to show all this cool stuff, all these cool guns and all this cool gear, but also it gets to be like this haunting thing instead of this, being tools of war, being used for war. It's actually, these things are just as terrifying when they're not used for war because of what they represent, because what they can do. And that boot on our heads feels just as hard whether they're firing the gun or not. So just to kind of step back for 1 second, this movie, we've talked about what it is more thematically, but fundamentally what this movie is a detective film where instead of following the main characters of like the rest of Patlabor, Noah and Asma, we're following their boss, Goto, who's always been like the best character in Patlabor, which is another reason why I probably like this movie.
I'll come back to that.
But Goto, they're like kind of laid back boss who's so the way he plays the politics and the way he plays like the bureaucracy is one of the hidden delights of this movie. Well, not hidden delights, but the like second level delights of this movie. And he's trying to investigate terrorism on the down low. There is a terrorist who attacked a bridge in Tokyo, and now the military have come in, taken advantage of this anxiety in Tokyo to exert like military control over a civilian place. And the civilian role of cops is kind of intermeshed with that military. Mm-hmm. And that's where we're starting.
And the police, so Police HQ is trying to use this as a way to leverage their own power within the government. And it's kind of like a behind the scenes power jockeying scenario between the military leaders and the police leaders of Japan that is bubbling over into them like staring each other down in the military goes on strike for a little bit, and the cops show up with their giant robots, and they're sitting there in tanks, and they're sitting there in robots, and it's like at any moment this could get really stupid. And going back to how Goto is one of the greatest characters, the greatest character in Patlabor, possibly.
I'm waiting.
You can jump right into it because it characterizes Goto so well in one moment. When Shinobu comes in and is like, I need you to do something for me. And he's like, is this you coming to me as my boss, or is this a favor to a friend? She said, favor to a friend. Well, I can't say no to that. That's just like...
But he can't say no to his boss. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect encapsulation of the character.
Fundamentally, your point is like really clear because Goto is characterized very quickly, but everyone, even if you've never seen, if you haven't done your homework, you can still jump into this movie and know everything about every character from just the scant moments we get with them. We don't actually get that much development for anyone besides like the two leads of this movie, which are, the two bosses of the SV2.
Yeah, Goto and Shinobu.
But you know everything you need to know about Ota from like seeing him for 2 seconds. Like they do a really good job.
He screams a lot and he likes to fire his big, large gun and blow stuff up. That's him. That's everything you need to know.
Or the difference between follow the money or follow the woman and why they do that. Tristan, though, you had a point to make.
I had several points to make. I'm going to leave the bigger one second because it might lead to a whole different thing. So the side thing that I wanted to bring up, because this is a film that is within the Patlabor franchise, which historically has seen the protagonist be Noah, who is a young, spunky Patlabor pilot. And it's like, hey, she got into the police force. This is how everything happens through her eyes, fresh-faced, and you can relate to her as an audience, and you learn things about the world through her eyes, yada, yada, yada. You get to Patlabor 2, and she's barely here. Except, I actually think that Patlabor 2 has one of my favorite, followed by least favorite Noah moments. And here's what I want your guys' take on. There was a scene where it was her and her partner, and they were out in the boonies somewhere in a car, and they were driving back. This is like before the end of the thing. And Noah was talking about how she did not want to be known as the girl that was obsessed with labors, which, having done your homework, you'll know how absolutely obsessed she is with her labor, Alphonse, who also barely gets a mention in the film at all. But that was like one of her core aspects, is just how absolutely obsessed with her labor specifically and Patlabor as a whole she was. So to have this kind of moment of introspection for her, I absolutely loved, only to then, at least in my mind, feel like it was tainted slightly by then her jumping into a labor at the end of it for the big final battle that I honestly feel like didn't need to be there.
I mean, she needed to like, because she's there for her duty, but she's no longer, Alphonse has been put in a garage, right? Alphonse is there as a tool. And I think it's really like great characterization that she's not in most of the movie, that she and her love interest from the past few, from all the OVAs and the movies, who basically got together off screen, have been on a ski vacation while all of this terrorist stuff is happening. And they just come back to Tokyo and they're, she's like having this conversation. And like, I do think that the big action scene has to be there because while it is a very good potboiler thriller, we need to see the action, the violence boil over. We need to see the, Oshi needs to do the action. He needs to be like, hey man, wouldn't it be cool if there was like a robot that was like controlled with a cable and it just like, you could shoot people with it from like a remote thing, but then if the cable was severed, it like had like an auto brain that it would like auto target, but it wasn't as good, so you could take advantage of that to take it out. Wouldn't that be cool? Right? Like there's a lot of,
well, to follow into my second
to do
point,
cool robot stuff.
To follow into my second point, not necessarily that second to last scene or big like moment within the film was a bad action scene. I wouldn't say it's a bad action scene, but it's one of the reasons why this is an argument that I think I've had with Miles before, in that I much prefer Patlabor 1, because Patlabor 1, in my mind, has a much better final action scene, if for no other reason than the best character in Patlabor, Kanaka Clancy, is there outside of her mech firing a pistol at giant robots while they are going 80 miles an hour. After she has shown up into Japan, because she is technically an American, but she's Japanese by birth and then spent time in America, blah, 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 blah. She shows up into Japan, and her opening line in that film is when the customs agent asks, "What are you here for?" And she flat out says, "Combat." and it just ends the scene. Konica Clancy is the best character, and the fact that she was not in this film, I understand. She does not fit here. But I'm very sad because she is my favorite character in Patlabor, bar none. I love Goto. I really do. I love Goto so much. He is a great guy. But I love Konica Clancy so much more.
And this is why I say do your homework for this, because you don't have to necessarily, because you can get like 95% of this movie without it.
Most of it, well, because that's the thing. That's why I was saying at the very start that Patlabor 2 feels like it's Patlabor in name only, because so much of what Patlabor was throughout the OVAs and through Patlabor 1 kind of isn't, like, it is sort of necessary. It definitely helps if you have seen it. But I don't feel like a lot of what Oshii was going for with this film makes it so that watching all of that is absolutely 100% required.
Yeah. Well, here's the problem. If you watch Patlabor 1 and then Patlabor 2
yes,
in sequence,
yes,
you understand the difference between Bubble Japan and post-Bubble Japan so clearly. Because to him, how could he make a movie like Patlabor 1 ever again after the economic crisis in Japan? Is kind of what I'm reading from the film and what the film is, to me, trying to say, which is we are complicit. And I was foolish to make these light, frothy movies before and to make this fun TV show and this fun movie when we live in a world, right? We live in a society.
In a world.
And the thing is, the movie does not feel so cynical. Right?
No.
I mean, Geoff, maybe you disagree.
No, I don't. Here's the thing. Like, I think that Patlabor 2 feels like the perfect, I mean, like I said, it feels like the perfect capstone to the entire OVA era in terms of that rumination. But it also feels like the perfect capstone to the story that Oshii didn't even realize he was telling with the Patlabor OVAs. Patlabor is, it starts as fundamentally kind of propaganda, because there's this, there's this idea of like good cops trying to do good work, and there are elements of corruption that at play in all of the Patlabor stories, right? There are elements of like
corruption and incompetence
and broken systems, and corruption and broken systems are a constant theme throughout all of Oshii's work, but Patlabor 2 really ties a bow on that and turns Patlabor from something that could be interpreted as propaganda to a rumination on the inherent conflict of society needs some kind of guardian to uphold order and, protect good people from violent forces, right? And there is a need for that to have a peaceful society, right? And the idea that people step up to do that, but the idea that the systems that we have designed to allow people to do that and to funnel that energy are designed to protect and perpetuate evil and corruption and violence and exploitation, and B, that they are very easily hijacked by bad actors who can steer society in very bad directions.
I'm with you, except for one part, and I don't think it's a quibble because I think it's important. I don't think Patlabor ever felt like propaganda to me, because in all of Patlabor, government is fundamentally corrupt and the police are fundamentally incompetent. But hey, isn't it sick as hell when a couple of them are cool and good? This movie is police are fundamentally corrupt, as well as the government, because they are part of the government. They are part of that, that system. And going rogue also makes you corrupt and implicit in a different way. But thank God there are some really cool badasses doing cop stuff and fighting the system from within. Because like SV2, their whole thing is, you're better off fishing. Like, society is better off with the cops fishing than trying to patrol the streets or trying to stop things. Because when they try and stop bad labors, they create more harm and damage than if they had done nothing at all. Like, if they try and stop a rogue labor, it almost always is a net negative for society. It's kind of funny that way.
Yeah,
right?
that is the humor of Patlabor.
Yeah, it's kind of funny to watch Oda go out there and be like, ah, boom, 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 and like cause all of this collateral damage.
In the earlier Patlabors, right, there is a sense of like the characters can do a certain degree of good, right? And you know, they can like bring about a better status quo through their actions or like,
but that's always despite the fact that they're cops.
Like, yeah, but it's you know, by doing the cool violence, they can if not make the world a better place, stop it from getting worse. And at the end of Patlabor 2, you don't have that sense, right?
No.
Not at all. Like Patlabor 2 to me feels like they've held off the future that we see in Ghost in the Shell by maybe a year. Patlabor 2 really does feel like a prequel to the setup of Section 9 and the increased militarization of Japan. And like, there's no going back from that occupation of Tokyo, right? There's no going back from like that police unit going rogue and like that is going to fundamentally change how the entire structure of Japanese government, right? Like Patlabor 2 is this idea of like, you know, there are these people trying to be heroes and there is a nobility in it, but no good can come from it, and it is all in support of a false peace that is going to destroy itself.
And if you haven't seen the movie, you should stop here, because we're now going to get into full spoilers. We've talked a lot about a lot of the movie, but we're now going to just go completely unbarred for the rest of the conversation.
As if we weren't already.
I don't think we spoiled things thematically, maybe, but not like at the end of the movie.
We've talked about like the overarching theme and kind of like even how the film makes us feel by the end of it. But yeah.
We haven't talked about like exactly the who's and what's and whys of the story.
When they do catch the bad guy at the end, like, do either of you feel like that's them catching the bad guy and that's like a victory for anyone?
No.
Like you said, Geoff, it's like it's not going to change the occupational status, the occupation status of Tokyo. And even if it did, or even if it could threaten to, propaganda would just get in the way of that.
Yeah. Like the only real win that comes from that is Shinobu and what's the terrorist name? Main terrorist.
Suge,
yeah. Shinobu and Suge finding that human connection in the middle of all of the violence, right? The only thing that really matters is, you know, love. And that's kind of like a cliche thing, but I mean, the way that it's done is so beautiful, right? And that's like the one upside. And the only thing I would say would make the movie's ending stronger would be if, I mean, you know, they can't kill off SV2, but if they killed off some of the characters that we love from the sitcom so far in that tunnel to like get her up there, that would have been, I think that would have really added like a bittersweet element to it. I understand why they didn't.
I disagree. You know? I feel like that's killing Walsh and Serenity. No, don't do that.
What, you mean the only thing that makes that movie memorable?
I'd rather the movie not be there. I'd rather the show kept going. I don't like it when when characters are killed for effect. Like, have it be a meaningful part of their story. If any member of SV2 died at the end of that film, there would have been no narrative reason for it. For their character specifically. They would have just been cannon fodder.
Not for their character, no.
Not for their character, but for the broader point of this violence bubbling over and the cost that it can have, right? And, you know, maybe you're right. Maybe we don't necessarily need to have that because they are fighting, you know, autonomous robots and the real destruction is to the peace of Tokyo, right? And the peace of Japan as a whole.
It's so funny how that end battle is bloodless, technically. Like, no human beings die, which, like the whole movie is getting at like the AI are now in charge. We are no longer in control of our own technology. It has become higher than us.
What's really interesting about Patlabor compared to Ghost in the Shell, because Ghost in the Shell is about like the loss of human identity to technology and the way that AI is, and information tech is supplanting all our human order. And there's a little bit of that in the radar hacking scene, right? But for the most part, the idea at the heart of Patlabor, which I think is more compelling and more relevant to our current time than some of the headier stuff in Ghost in the Shell, is that just having the hardware there, just having the ability to do this stuff to another human being, right, is making the conflict and the violence inevitable within the city, right? It's like there's that very pointed moment in the standoff between the cops and the military where Goto is just like, our robots aren't working. They're just, they're having a malfunction. We've got to leave them in their flatbeds, right? And because he understands that if you get that robot up and you arm it, you are making conflict and violence more likely.
You are escalating.
The combination of the man-made systems and the man-made technology that benefit from and perpetuate violence is making more violence inevitable. The fact that, all these military guys are in tanks instead of out fishing or, chilling at their base playing cards or watching TV is what is driving their aggression and paranoia to the point that Suge's plan of cutting off communication and just letting the whole country go crazy is such a threat. You give us dumb monkeys these tools to destroy ourselves, and you just leave them there. And even if you've got like a very big sign that says "Don't press the big red button," at some point, some idiot is gonna go up and press the big red button.
Well, I mean, they'd shot down the blimp, which was foolish to begin with, and then it was so perfect that this big yellow gas came out. Everyone's freaking out. Everyone's grabbing their gas masks. And then they're like, oh no, this is just completely inert. There's nothing to it. But also, there was actually a bunch of poisonous gas in there. So if you really want to shoot down another Zeppelin, they could. They're telling you, we can just kill you all immediately. We're kind of messing with you, but we're also doing a terrorism in like the most profound way. And like the propaganda, the terrorism and propaganda, like dichotomy was so fascinating with like the like photographs of the fighter jet at the beginning. And the whole time I was thinking like in my head, like jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams, right? I just kept thinking, looking at that, like that picture of the plane being the wrong plane, like being a fake one. Wow. Jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams. Jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams. Like that's what this movie is. This movie is saying like we are so susceptible to propaganda, to terrorism, and it doesn't take much more than a push. And it's so funny how much this predicted what a lot of the world has looked like in the current regime, in the post 9/11 world, that America has like been very forceful about projecting onto the world. But it's also funny how it predicted even just like where we wanted to go with our sci-fi. So I feel like, could Minority of Report have existed without this movie? Could like The Matrix would not have been The Matrix without this movie. And like you said, Ghost in the Shell would not have been Ghost in the Shell without this movie, because so much of what Ghost in the Shell is, you can find within Patlabor, the text of Patlabor 2, that is not present in the manga.
Yeah, it's Oshi. I mean, yeah, I would say
Oshi being Oshi.
Patlabor, Ghost in the Shell 1 and 2 are kind of like Patlabor 2 and then Ghost in the Shell 1 and 2 are kind of like a conceptual trilogy of Oshi sort of, I mean, exploring these post-bubble anxieties that he has, but also this understanding how information control, information manipulation propaganda. Just very subtle things can be used to push a message. Like, I mean, what you said, the jet, that's such a brilliant little moment where like they use enhancement technology and you know, you enhance the video and you can enhance that video to make it look like an experimental American jet or something that exists in the JSDF. And both, you know, you're enhancing a video, you're either way, you're lying. Both that subtle distinction has such a profound implication for everything that cascades out of that. And the uncertainty is more dangerous than either answer. Yeah, I mean, the fact that all of the terrorism is bloodless is, you know, just designed to frighten people and get them on edge and push the institutions to a point where they start inflicting violence on the people themselves is such a salient point. I think the most salient point about how America responded to 9/11 and how every government really responds to terrorism over and over again. It just brings forth the desire of the system and the agents that perpetuate the system to flex their strength and hurt people.
About 10 years ago, I gave a series of panels about Mamoru Oshii. He's very long since been my favorite director, like probably for anything. But another one of my favorite directors, Andrei Tarkovsky, has done things like The Mirror and Stalker, which inspired the game Stalker.
Is he the guy who did the movie where the guy carries the candle?
That's very vague.
Something.
Nostalgia?
There's a 20-minute scene of the guy carrying the candle back and forth.
That sounds like Tarkovsky. Like he did the original Solaris. I haven't seen Nostalgia, but I feel like that's from that movie. Tarkovsky is one of my favorite directors, and obviously is one of Oshii's. I used to like compare like the ending shot of Beautiful Dreamer to the ending shot of Stalker. Like there's so many comparisons you can make between those movies and just the way that they go about. Tarkovsky's movies are very poetic and frequently feature characters reading poetry or speaking poetically. And in this movie, we get that kind of like self-indulgent, like I've heard it criticized as self-indulgent or as like self-insert into the characters where either Goto is soliloquizing. Soliloquizing?
Yeah.
That's close
soliloquizing.
You're good.
I mean, no, a soliloquy is when they
or
directly
Arakawa.
address the camera. Or no, that's...
Aren't they doing that though?
Yeah. Arakawa soliloquizes, but it's...
Arakawa does it. Goto does it a little bit. And there's just, you get the city. Like, I think it's a little annoying when people are like, oh, the city's a character. But in this film, Tokyo is very much a character. Yeah. Tokyo being a battleground, and how much of the movie is just sick Kenji Kawai beeps while we're looking at this new version of Tokyo, this new world order. I think I love those things that other people would say are self-indulgent because it is let the movie wear its heart on its sleeve. It performs better for it. It benefits from multiple rewatchings, but because it tells you what the message is so clearly and so centrally, you can really look at the whole movie from the lens Oshii's looking for you to look at it from, or at least consider it from. Yeah. And yet there's still more layers to it beyond that.
I think it's a really great example of how, to a certain extent, show don't tell is a trap. Show don't tell is an important technique because you want your audience to engage and think about the story that you're telling, and you want them to, like, you know, you don't want to treat them like an idiot. I do think that, like, stories like Metal Gear Solid or all of Oshii's work that give that clear thesis statement and then show a bunch of different examples ruminating on it and allow the audience to, like, think on it and come to their own conclusions, but also be led there because the storyteller has a point to make are much more effective than like, you know, just sort of vague gestures at ideas that are like, oh, it makes you think, huh? You know?
I couldn't agree. I mean, this is the, like, I know writers who use subtlety and they're cowards type thing, but you captured it really well, Geoff, of what I was trying to get at. Like, I agree completely. And there's plenty of showing and not telling in this movie. I would say most of the movie is showing, not telling. But we also do get that very succinct moment.
And there's showing, not telling, even when he's soliloquizing, right? Like when he's talking about the evils of the neoliberal order, there's like all of these shots of mundane industrial areas of Tokyo and commerce going on unabated. And it you know, it's meant to like provoke thoughts about what this is. And, you know, it's, I mean, Oshii is one of those directors where not a single shot is wasted. Every frame of this movie is a painting, in the truest sense of the word. But I mean, I've been going on a lot. Tristan, what do you think about the shot composition?
Oh, besides the fact that it's absolutely freaking beautiful every single time. Like how you could make wallpaper out of virtually every shot. I mean, there's probably, in the span of the whole movie, there's probably something in there that it's just like, okay, maybe not that one, but like virtually everything, especially the intro. Like the intro, despite the fact that like Noah is like not in the film after the intro, like at all, that intro is like so iconic. It shows up, it's been showing up all throughout the internet for like years as just hey, here's what anime looks like, and it's just shots from Patlabor 2.
Yeah, I mean the robot foot on the treadmill, for example,
the hands,
everything with the hands, like from Ghost in the Shell. One of the more famous shots that gets shown up a lot is when the androids, they have their hands and it like extends into like 50 different hands, and then they can go clickety clackety like a lot faster. Hands in Patlabor 2, and anything with like the face helmet and anything like that, that's used almost just as much, and I've seen that around so much.
As a very quick follow-up, I just want to ask you guys, what is your favorite shot in the movie?
Probably near the end of the film, when all the birds are flying away. Not to give any spoilers, but probably that.
I think it's the kids spying on the tanks.
That is pretty
like,
good.
It's a little, like, not subtle. It is very obvious and direct, but I think it just is perfectly suited to where it's at in the movie and perfectly suited to what the message is of the movie.
You know, for me, I think it's the shot of the answering machine picking up in the empty, dark office with the snow falling on the city outside the window. I mean, the descent of winter is kind of a metaphor that runs through the entire last act of like, you know,
the OG winter is coming.
Yeah. I just, that shot is just still, it's just burned into my mind since I've watched the movie. That's the one for me. But I mean, I think intellectually the shot of the kid on the tank is
What were you gonna say before, Miles?
So we've been on our quest for the best for a while before this podcast started.
Yes.
Informally.
Yes.
And when we put together like our initial like rough lists each over the last summer, I noticed, Tristan, you had Patlabor 1 very high on your movies list. I did. And you did not have Patlabor 2 anywhere on there. And so I kind of want to talk about where we feel like Patlabor 2 is going to land in our final list, so and if you are an advocate for it.
Here's the thing. I don't, like, as I was mentioning before, I don't necessarily know if I would have been an advocate for Patlabor 2. I like Mamoru Oshii a lot, but I mean, as we'll probably get into later in the podcast, there are other films, more specifically Ghost in the Shell, that I would stand a heck of a lot more. When it comes to just Patlabor, I mean, a part of me would almost rather, at least from my perspective, I would almost rather put the OVA on the list rather than Patlabor 2, because I feel like that is a far more overall kind of showcase of what Patlabor is. Like, I do get the messages that Patlabor 2 is showcasing. I get that, and I understand it, but also I don't want to say that the film is inherently cynical, because I don't think that's the right way of describing it. There is a level of not necessarily like darkness, but what's the word I'm looking for? Like more like nihilism that's prevalent in some parts of it. And I will say that at least I don't jive with that mostly. Like I can enjoy it, and I do enjoy it. But it's one of those, if you're wanting me to actually and honestly ask, would I put this in the top 100? If it's just me, probably not over like the Patlabor OVA. But I mean, that's why this podcast exists. And now that we've come to this point where it's not as easy as all of us unilaterally agreeing that something needs to be on the list, what do we want to do here?
I mean, it's
because in general, I'm okay with it. Would I have put something else on the list instead of Patlabor 2? Yes. But would I be sad if this was in the top 100? Not at all. That's kind of where I'm at.
So I kind of want to. I think instead of nihilism, what?
Okay, yes, I talked about a lot of things there. Feel free.
Yeah,
go on.
So I think pessimism is a better
pessimism. I mean,
but
yeah.
But here, Patlabor 2 makes a very interesting counterpoint to say Mobile Suit Gundam, because
which one?
Oshi and Tomino are both people who think military hardware is rad and war sucks.
Yeah.
But like,
you can probably add Miyazaki to that list too.
Yeah, Miyazaki too, yeah. Tomino is somebody who thinks we're all doomed, right? Like, fundamentally, the message of pretty much every Tomino story is that, like, we're not going to be able to escape this cycle of violence. And the message of Oshi's work is like, there is a path out, but it is slim. I think Oshi does think better things are possible. And I think maybe Tomino did at some point, but like, if you listen to Tomino over the last
15, 20 years.
Yeah, 15, 20 years. He's just like,
the last hope died out of him once he finished Turn A.
To me, I think that the debate of should it be 1 or 2 in the list.
See, that's the thing. I'm not even trying to argue for 1 over 2. Like, I like 1 for a lot of very personal reasons, but like from a this is the best anime of all time, I would almost rather put the OVAs.
But what I think the correct synthesis to this debate that has popped up here in this case, and what I would do is I would put the whole OVA series, the whole OVA timeline as a single entry within the list.
So basically, Patlabor, everything except Patlabor TV.
And 3.
3 doesn't exist, Miles.
I mean, I would also recommend Patlabor TV as to anybody who enjoys Patlabor, especially if they enjoy the goofier parts of the OVAs, right? But
yeah, and you don't mind like watching a very clearly 80s anime. Very clearly 80s.
Who doesn't? I love 80s anime. But I would say that the Patlabor OVAs are a cohesive story. Maybe not the story that Oshi expected to tell when he started telling it, right? But I think that there is a very solid narrative through line about the role of police in society, what police protect, and the violence.
Try and do this without soliloquizing.
Yeah.
Can I read you a quote from Oshi about this exact topic?
Okay. What did Oshi say?
It's been 4 years since Patlabor 1, which was released in the middle of the bubble economy, and once the bubble had burst, it became clear that Tokyo isn't such a big deal, and that this is a very feeble society.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't actually think that they are... Like, I would want 1 and 2 separate. Like, they
need to be separate,
very separate narrative... they are 2 separate sides of Oshi, and I think Oshi, looking back on this, would say maybe that it's not cynical, but that it is a little more pessimistic than you would like, even if, yes, it is less, even with its dour ending that says, like, there's not really much hope, it still feels like there is
they still
some
hold
hope at
hands.
the end. They still hold hands.
While she's...
But, I mean, that's kind of like holding hands while you're watching the sun death of the universe, or of the solar system, come at you, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, but they still hold hands. There's still, that little.
I felt hope.
Mm-hmm.
The question, Geoff. Miles is obviously wanting it to go on the list because, as he stated at the start, this is his number one of all time.
Yeah.
I'm kind of on the fence. Just very succinctly, would you put it on the 100 list if this was just your list?
Absolutely. No question.
Okay.
And if I had to just put Patlabor 2 as an individual movie on the list, I still would. And I would also be happy to make a carve out for Patlabor 1 and the OVAs as a separate thing. But yeah. I also think that there is a place for them as a cohesive entry where the divide between Patlabor 2 and the rest of Patlabor is part of the message and part of what makes the entire story interesting. That's
how high would you go?
How high would you go? How high would you go?
With Freerun, I said top 20, right?
Yeah.
I think maybe top 15. I don't know.
Of like all anime or films? Just to be clear.
I mean, of films, top 10. If we're just doing films as a separate list, top 10. I don't know if I'd put it over or under Gits.
Gits, it's its own beast. Like, don't ask me the question of where I would put this near Gits, because that's a completely separate conversation that we absolutely have to have at another time.
Yeah, Ghost in the Shell is the bottom half of Oshi Works.
Yeah, I also don't know if I'd put it over or under Freerun. Like, the more I think about it, because I think top 20 is a good place for it in the overall.
And I mean, that's not set in stone.
Mm-hmm.
Time will change everything. The more that we watch, because you had never seen Patlabor 2 before, and there are probably many other things that we will talk about in this podcast that you have also never seen that may remove Patlabor 2 from the top 20 spot.
Perhaps. I mean, the thing is, like, I know generally how much I love Hoshi's stuff, which is a little bit less than Miles, I think, probably, but like quite a lot. And like, the fact that I'm like balancing it against Ghost in the Shell and I can't really decide which one I'd put over the other is a pretty good sign that it's top 10 for movies and top. Maybe it would be safer to just say both it and Freerun top 30. I don't know.
Okay.
That's because there's a lot of really good anime out there. But I mean, if I'm comparing it to Freerun, I would have to say whole Patlabor series and not just the movie.
Yeah.
But we got to figure out how we're going to categorize that.
We have time. All the time in the world.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Later.